Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. I'm your humble French tarot reader Marine, and today we're going to be talking about tarot decks that I don't talk about enough. I was going through my shelves the other day, doing a little bit of spring cleaning, dusting, reorganizing, and I found some decks that I realized I hadn't really talked about, showed, mentioned on my channel in years. Some of them I don't even think I've even ever shared with you guys, and yet all of these decks are quite unique. They bring something different to the table, so I thought today we could remedy that and I could just talk with you guys about some decks that I'm realizing I really don't talk about enough. Got some indie choices here, some mass market decks. All of these are quite different. All of these bring something quite unique to my collection. I think a lot of you would also appreciate them to bring something a little bit different to your reading. In the description box, you're going to find all the names of the decks I'm mentioning today. In the description box, you'll also find my Instagram page as well as my second channel, The Waves of Your Soul Readings, which is where I pull the cards for you guys and which is where you can find all of these decks put to good use. This is where I post pick-up pile readings, tarot guidance, monthly readings. I do readings on lots of different subjects. It's a great time. I invite you to subscribe. And that's it. I don't have a huge intro today, so we're gonna get right into it. Tarot decks I don't talk about enough. Let's get into it. So we're gonna start with a tarot deck I don't think I've ever shared on my channel. I was trying to look back on my videos and I couldn't find even one time where I mentioned this, and I've had this deck for years, so I don't know what happened. Inadvertently, I have some deck secrets, so we're gonna expose my secret today and share with you a deck I don't think you've ever seen on this channel before, and that is the Tarot Hypna. So this is an indie tarot deck from French creators. This is by the company Manufacture des Merveilles. They are indie creators. They have a few decks out there. They have oracle decks that are really cool, but I think this is their only tarot. I don't even know if this is the box that it comes with now. I don't know if it's been redone because I got this back in 2022, I think, and so they might have revamped the box or how it looks, etc. But I'm sure the cards will be the same. And the last time I checked, this was retailing for 43 euros. Here is the name of the shop. They do crystals and they do pendulums, and they also produce their own decks. So here are the backs. The cards are definitely a little bit smaller than your stereotypical tarot size. Let me find one. I should have been prepared, but we know I'm a bad YouTuber. Let's see. Look, only just, right? I don't know if you can see that. Just a little bit less wide than your stereotypical tarot size. And this is a photographic deck that is super cool and that I've been using for my own personal readings for ever since I've gotten this deck, so like back in 2022. And I realized I've never shared it on my channel before. I've never even shared it on Instagram. I need to remedy this because this is definitely a unique deck. As you can see, photographic, unique in the way that a lot of the writings are written straight on the cards, which a lot of the time would bother me, but with this deck I actually really like it. And I don't know, there's something very simple, straight to the point, almost DIY with this deck that normally is not my vibe, and that yet with this one works. Here we have the Two of Wands. The wands are almost looking like I Ching, which I think is quite cool. Here we have the Six of Swords. Photographic deck, I'm guessing it's like stock images that they have a little bit changed and kind of judged. We have some extra cards. So here we have Faith as some extra majors. Here we have Judgment. This is the Ace of Swords. So it's quite modern as it's photographic. We have the Tower with the Eiffel Tower, which as a French person always a fun thing to see, the Eiffel Tower in the Tower card. I think that's quite cool. Have the Three of Wands. It's very simple, it's very minimalistic, and yet I've really enjoyed reading with it for myself because it's so straight to the point. Here we have the Fool. And whilst it's in French, as you can see the minors, you have the titles in French, but you also have the symbols underneath the titles, so even if you don't speak French, you could see that this is the Seven of Cups. And for the majors, you'll see that the titles are written on the bottom. We'll find one here, the Seven of Swords. Here we have the Nine of Wands, which I think the Nine of Wands with the Firefighter is a great interpretation, by the way. Three of Pentacles. Let's find a major. There you go, the Magician. So for the majors, you have the number, and you have the title again in French. Even if you don't speak French, I don't think you would have any issue really reading with this, because like I said, you just need to translate the majors. The minors are very straight to the point. Here we have the emperor. And purchase a separate guidebook with this, which I didn't, because I didn't feel like I needed it, but you could if you want. And the name Hypna Tarot comes from the idea of dreams. This is meant to be used originally to help interpret your dreams, your subconscious, as everything looks a little bit, quite ethereal and a little bit fuzzy. It's meant to help you explore your subconscious, explore your dreams. I personally have really enjoyed, like I said, reading with this for myself. And I realized the other day when I was going through my shelves that I don't think I've ever shared this deck on my channel, even once. I've never done a reading with this for you guys either. It is very, very simple, almost minimalistic, but there's something very clear about it that I appreciate. Here we have the Hierophant, and we look at one more, the Lovers. Gorgeous card, actually. It's less busy than a collage deck, and so I think that's why maybe some of you would appreciate it. If you find collage deck to be too busy, this is definitely more a pared down collage style, because for a lot of the cards, it's only one image. Some of them have layers, but a lot of them are quite straight to the point. Eight of Swords. Gorgeous. Okay, one more, the Knight of Swords. So there you go. That is the Hypna Tarot. I need to read with this for you guys. Oh, there we go. I wanted to find one of my favorite cards. We have the Ten of Swords, which I think is a really cool interpretation of the Ten of Swords, because this is like, when you hit rock bottom, sometimes it takes so much effort to stand up again, and you don't know when he's jumping if he's gonna make it or if he's gonna crash and burn, but that dedication to keep trying, I think, is a beautiful interpretation of the Ten of Swords. So I really like that card. That's the Hypna Tarot, and that was the first deck that I realized I don't talk about enough, because I've never actually talked about it. So there we go. Let's talk about another tarot deck I realized I don't talk about enough, and yet that definitely deserves more love and more attention in this space, and that is the Tarot of the Sweet Twilight by Los Scarabeo. This is a mass market deck. Are the backs. As per all of Los Scarabeo decks, it comes with one of those little white books in different languages. This is a deck that has been out since 2021, which is, I think, when I got this. I think I bought this when it came out. And this is one I love to use for dream interpretation specifically. This is definitely a whimsical, fantastical deck. You're gonna see the art style is very unique and very recognizable. As soon as you see it, you recognize that deck, I think. There's a quality to the art style that is very dreamlike. The fact that everything is almost under a filter of blue makes this deck feel like you are literally, as the name suggests, walking in this twilight space, in this liminal space, because the colors feel very strange and blue tinted. Everyone is blue tinted as well. They've got blue skin, so it makes you feel like you're walking in this strange twilight world, this liminal world that always reminds me of the moon card in tarot. Like, if I had to give this deck a particular major arcana, I think it would be the moon card, because everything feels like dreamlike, feels like you are in this strange moonlit world, but also the quality of the art style, the way that the cards are depicted feel very whimsical, fantastical, sometimes even absurd, which for me remind me of the moon card, the idea of exploring our subconscious, exploring our dreams. This is definitely not an RWS clone. This does its own thing. It does not follow traditional RWS imagery at all. It's very unique in its interpretation, and yet this is so great because it will help you push outside your comfort zone, help you use your intuition, and give you some really interesting interpretation to your readings. This is a fantastic deck if you want to be doing dream exploration. I have done some fantastic dream interpretation for myself thanks to this deck. This is also great if you want to do any kind of subconscious exploration, past life readings, anything where it's looking at things that are a little bit hidden. And overall, because the cards are very unique and because they have very much the artist's own interpretation of tarot. It allows you to step outside the boxes we sometimes confine ourselves in when it comes to tarot, where we are used to seeing the same cards depicted over and over and over. This deck helps me to, when I'm feeling like I'm going into a tarot rut, this helps me to expand beyond that and to really step outside my comfort zone and give me new ways to interpret each card. So I really appreciate it for that. I understand this won't be everyone's cup of tea because of the way this looks. It's a little bit strange. Like I said, some cards feel a little bit absurd, and yet the readings I've done with these decks have all been really interesting, really unique, and great interpretation. And overall, this is one that I would recommend to anyone who is going through a little bit of a tarot rut, who's feeling a little bit blocked or bored or uninspired. Anyone who wants to really reignite their intuition, push themselves outside their comfort zone, get new interpretation. This is really one that I always recommend for that. Look at this Emperor. It's so interesting. This double side of the Emperor. It almost looks like we have one side that's the very serious side of the Emperor, and then we have one side that looks like almost like a goblin or a fool with a jester. So when you pull this card, you automatically think, okay, what are those two faces? Is this like the very serious side and the side that you project to the world, and maybe this is your inner self, the self that's more whimsical and fantastical that you're not yet willing to show to the world? How can you marry the two to make the right decisions? Light self and your shadow self. There's so many ways you can interpret this card, depending on context, depending on the question. I think it's super interesting. This Three of Swords, I think, is fascinating because, again, something different, not just a heart with three swords in it. Here, it's self-inflicted pain. It's literally X marks the spot. So she's about to stab herself, and yet you can see she's hurting. So this automatically, I would think about, in what ways is this pain I'm feeling self-inflicted? In what ways am I holding my own knife? In what ways am I choosing to potentially hurt myself where all I can do is drop the knife and walk away? Really interesting interpretation of the Three of Swords. Let's do another one. We have Three of Cups. Again, super interesting. Here, instead of this accent on friendship, we have almost someone who is like at one with the animals. We have little squirrels here, so maybe instead of a focus on friendship, it could be a focus on your animal friends, your spirit friends, your allies in the other world, right? Another way to think about the way we're supported and surrounded, not just through friends and community, but maybe through our pets or our allies, our guides, the spirits on the other side of the veil. That's another part of our relationships and friendships and support system that I think this card makes me think of. So it's just a really interesting deck. Always, every time I use this one, I have beautiful, interesting readings, and so I wanted to mention it because I've not talked about it in way too long, and this is mass market, it's affordable, and it deserves more love. And last card, let's look at this Tower. I think that's one of my favorite cards of the deck. We see this huge disruption here, obviously, with the Tower, and yet the sun is rising, and this little girl and her teddy bear have managed to save themselves. They're hanging out on the branch, and they're waiting for the tower to explode. They're not too bothered, they know they're safe there, and it's almost like they've managed to get away before the explosion, and now they just need to wait for the rubble to settle. So super interesting interpretation of the Tower, I think, allows us to look at the ways sometimes we might have saved ourselves the trouble, sometimes the ways where sometimes in our life we've managed to protect ourselves, and we can escape from the chaos and look at it from an external point of view. Super interesting interpretation. So that is the Tarot of the Sweet Twilight. Let's talk about an indie deck that is truly a favorite of mine, and yet I realize I don't talk about on my channel nearly enough. This is called the Ellis deck. I have the 5th edition. There's been a few editions out. I don't really know which edition we're at now, but I think the only thing that changes is potentially the backs, and I don't know if some of the editions have gilding or not, but other than that, the art style is always the same. So on the 5th edition, the one I have, here are the backs. One side, the cat is black, and on another, it's white. And on this particular edition, we have gold gilding. It doesn't come with a guidebook, but it comes with one of those little leaflet, which is actually super awesome. small but mighty, and I think really interesting way to look at the cards. So this is small, but it's good. I enjoyed referencing it. And this is a deck, like I said, that I really love. It's definitely in the top tier decks of my collection. I really appreciate this artist style, the color, the, again, fantasy inspiration. You guys know I'm a huge fantasy lover. I'm a nerd for that. I'm a sucker for anything otherworldly and interesting and different and unique. And Taylor Ellis' art style is very striking and very recognizable. He has another deck that I really enjoy as well, the Starbound Fantasia, I think it's called. But that other one is more toss based, and this one is definitely more RWS. And you guys know I am an RWS girly at heart, so I prefer the Ellis deck. I really appreciate the fact that each suit you are taken into a different part of the world. For the rods or the wands, we are in this kind of like fae-like world where these little creatures are hanging out with their fox friends. I mean, sometimes the fox seems like allies, sometimes they seem like enemies, so it's almost like they have to coexist. For the cups, we are in this kind of like mermaid world. For the sword, we are surrounded by ravens or crows. Really interesting, again, world building. You are taken in different part of this fantasy world. Pictures are absolutely stunning. So I think this is a deck that reads fantastically for anything and everything. Like, I've done career reading with this one, I've done love reading with this one, I've done spiritual reading with this one, and it's one that every time I've used it for other people, somehow, even if for people who don't necessarily like fantasy stuff, people seem to really like this one. I don't know, it's like they seem to really connect with it. It feels like it's just really good at bridging the gap between the reader and the querent in that way. And like I said, the mages specifically are so great. And I think my favorite suit is the rod suit because I love foxes. Foxes are like goblins of the world, right? There are animals like that give me goblin energy that I love, like foxes and raccoons and otters, right? they just are some of the animals that make me smile. Look at these trends, it's very interesting. I just think that the reinterpretation from this artist are really cool, unique. It's not your stereotypical RWS clone, and yet, like I was saying, a lot of people resonate with this one. Easy to read for everything and anything, and the colors are very striking. This is one I really enjoy. I'm always pulling it out for myself, and I realized the other day that I hadn't really shared it on my channel in ages, and that I hadn't used it either for you guys in a long time. So we're gonna be remedying that. I'm gonna use it in a reading for you guys soon. I love this Knight of Rods, super cool with his fox friend. I absolutely love this Hanged Man. So cool. I don't know, there's something a little bit disturbing about this bunny, and yet, I don't know, I find him super interesting. I love this Hermit as well. I'm having a real love affair with hermit cards this year. My yearly card this year is a Fool, but because we're in a hermit year, I don't know why I'm noticing all of my fantastic hermits in the decks, and I'm having a real love affair with the hermit this year. This is definitely one of my favorites. I love it with his turtle friend. It's so cool, and I love how the beard looks like almost like a snail shell. It's really, really cool. And the Hierophant is also a favorite in this one. So I love that he's sitting on books. It's giving less religious and more mentor, and almost like Yoda-like, you know, and I like that. So that's the Ellis deck. Fantastic deck. I really like it. I definitely need to pull it out to read for you guys. As far as indie deck goes, this is one I definitely don't see enough of in my opinion. So I wanted to bring it back out, mention it today as it deserves all the love. Let's talk about a mass market deck that I've definitely not shared on my channel in years, and yet that is really cool, and that has one of the best guidebooks I've read since I've started learning tarot, to be honest, and that is the Tarot Illuminati. Now, I have the French version, and the French version also wins the award for the worst, most ugly backings ever. Are you ready? You need to be ready. If you're not sitting down, you need to sit down right now. I'm warning you. This is a trigger warning for your eyes, because these are the most ugly backings of decks you will ever see in your life. There you go. Oh my god, why? Why did they do that? They did us dirty like that. Like French people, we did not deserve this. Okay, I don't know what we did to deserve this, but if it's rude. Honestly, it's an affront to the nation, and those backings should be sent to space and never to be seen again. I absolutely hate them. Horrible. Horrible, horrible. But the deck in itself, though, is so great, and the English version definitely don't have these backings, so you guys are safe. This is a very wild, busy deck by Eric C. Dune and Kim Huggins, I think, for the guidebook. Like I said, this is the French version, but you can get this in English, and I believe there's different versions that you can get in English, one with a small guidebook, one with a big guidebook, and you can also get the big guidebook on Kindle, which is what I've done. Let me tell you, the big guidebook, which you can get on your Kindle for like 4 or 5 euros, so good, you guys. One of the best guidebook I've read in years. Still to this day, it's a guidebook I recommend to everyone, because even if you don't have the deck, I think you would enjoy reading that guidebook. Tim Huggins is a fantastic writer when it comes to tarot, and that guidebook still lives rent-free in my mind, even though I've not read it in years. It's still something that I remember. I highlighted the shit out of it on my Kindle, and it's one of those that I will always appreciate having read, and that I will probably revisit soon because it's that good. And normally I read guidebooks once. I don't necessarily reference them again and again unless, you know, they have like journaling prompts or things like that I want to try. But this one, it was just really interesting and unique. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention, was how great the guidebook is. You can get it in print copy, or like I said, you can get it on your Kindle for super cheap, which is what I did. Let's talk about the deck though. The deck is crazy busy, okay? This is maximalist at heart. This is, I know, again, not gonna be everyone's cup of tea. I've had this deck for years. I think 2019 is when I got this one. It's very bright, very vibrant, and almost a little bit, dare I say, cringy, in the way that some of the computer-generated images feel like early 2000 band cover images, and yet I love that. I love that art style that feels a little bit like nostalgic. I love this computer generated like realness that feels, like I said, a little bit early 2000, not super neat, right? You can definitely feel like this is an older deck, and yet this is part of what makes this deck so charming to me. It's so bold, it's so bright, it's a little bit crazy. There's a lot going on. Definitely like different cultures represented, different eras even. The eras are a little bit all over the place, and yet this reads so good, you guys. This reads so good because it's so busy that your eyes always have something to go to. And I'm a maximalist at heart, okay? You guys know that. The more the better. I really don't do minimalist decks. I don't love black and white decks, although there's one black and white deck I'll share with you in a bit that I like, but I'm not a huge fan of black and white minimalist decks. I like busy, I like colors, I like details, and this has all of that. Every time I use this deck, I notice something new, because there's so much going on every single card that I always notice a new animal or a new symbol or a new use of color, and that makes my readings exciting. This is one that loves to talk about career. It really loves to talk about work, career, finances, things pentacle related, but it's one you could use for everything and anything. There's something that could feel almost tacky about this, and yet I love it. So this is one of those decks that's, I don't know, I can't really explain why it's such a fun time to use, and yet I always have a great time using it. Look, another fantastic hermit. Just love how bright it is, how vibrant it is, all the details. It could be almost too much, but it's just enough. In my humble opinion, it's just enough. Another deck I don't see nearly quite enough. I feel like this is one of those that, potentially because it's older and because I know not everyone is gonna love how busy it is and how eclectic it is, but I appreciate it, and I just wish we could change those backs, because at least in the French version it is an attack on our nation, okay? So that is the Tarot Illuminati by Eric C. Dune and Kim. Let's talk about an indie deck that actually has been picked up mass market. I have the indie version, but you can now find this mass market, and that is the Many Queens Tarot. And you guys, this is a deck I really love. Again, I use it for myself oftentimes around Taurus season because this deck gives me Taurus vibes, and I realized I had not either used it on a reading or mentioned it on this channel in way too long. So this is what this video is all about. It's about sharing decks I don't talk about enough and yet that deserve more love. So here are the backs. Like I said, this is the indie version. I'm not quite sure what the mass market version looks like, if it's the same backings or not. I just know that this was picked up mass market, which is so great as this is a fantastic queer deck. So this is very much LGBTQIA plus friendly. It is also a celebration of the body in all of its form. And this is one of the very few decks in my collection that are black and white that I actually enjoy. I told you I'm not a huge black and white girly. I love color, I love maximalism, but this one does it for me because I just love the art style. I love the celebration of the different bodies, and I love how joyful and bold it is. This is a deck that helps me when I want to connect back to my body, like I said, as it feels very grounded and it feels very embodied. And I also love the fact that it represents such different people. We see body hair in this one, which seems like such a small thing, but not something we see a lot of in tarot deck. The characters, while they look cartoonish, they also remind me of the people around me, of my friends, and so that's also what I appreciate about it. Like, it feels cartoonish, but it also feels real, if that makes sense. And overall, it's just a really great deck. If you were to use this deck at a party, I'm sure a lot of people would find this very cool. It just looks quite modern and cool and unique, and it really reads like a dream. And for me, one that I love to use when I want to ground, come back to the present moment. It's one I'm often called to use in Taurus season, Virgo season, any kind of like earth time. I find myself called to this deck because it helps me to come back to the present moment, reconnect with myself. And again, one I hadn't really shared on my channel in ages, and now that we can get it mass market, I wanted to bring it back out, as I know a lot of you will probably enjoy this one. And maybe if you weren't aware it existed, and now that it's mass market, more easily accessible, I think one that a lot of people would enjoy. We love a queer deck on this channel. I love a celebration of people's different, and it's one I want to use the channel The Waves of Your Soul readings because I miss it. I miss reading with this for someone else than me. Also those backs, some of my favorite backings ever. I love eyes. Maybe that sounds weird, but another indie deck I realize I'm using a lot in the background for myself, and that I think I even used in a pick a card reading at some point, but that I haven't really talked about on my channel ever since I showed it in a haul last year, is this one, the Silhouette Tarot. This is an indie deck. I got mine on Vermillon Collection. They are a Chinese company and they store all sorts of super cool Chinese decks. The box is really cool. You can see we have a cutout here when you pull it out. It looks like this. Really interesting box and design, and so very interesting production here. We have some extra cards, some oracle cards that are added to the deck. We have a yes and a no card, and we have some added oracle cards. Don't really use like oracle cards that come with tarot. Let me know in the comments if you guys use them or not. I always end up putting them on the side. If I want an oracle deck, I'll pull out an oracle deck. So every time decks come with an extra card, I'm like, oh, thank you so much. I'm never gonna use that. Yeah, I'd love to know if there's any people out there who actually use the extra cards that come in deck, because I don't really know anyone. I feel like most people I talk to, they just do like me. They take out the extra cards and put them on the side. Maybe we are the minority. I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments. Do you guys use extra oracle cards that come with tarot decks? Here are the backs, and we have holo gold edges. The cardstock feels a little bit plasticky and bendy. I don't know if it's linen or if it's plasticky coated. I don't really know, but it's very flexible for the people who like reflow shuffling. You will have no problem doing that. And this is a deck. When I got this, I talked a lot about it, and then I kind of stopped talking about it because you know how it is. There's other decks. I was also doing like yearly favorites, rounding up the year at the end of the year, and so sometimes decks fall through the crack. And yet, this is so good, you guys. The art style of this deck is almost like a puppeteer marionette style, where you only see the black outline against colorful background, so just like silhouettes, right? It makes me think of marionettes and puppets. And this you can get in either black, so that's the one I have with the black outlines, or you can get it with the white. And I personally went for the black one because I found that the white was harder to look at, but you can choose which one speaks to you the most. This is a little bit, again, whimsical, magical, fantastical, and it kind of takes you into this almost fairy tale land, even though it doesn't reference specific fairy tale. The vibe of it, the aesthetic of it feels very fairy tale-like. You guys know I love that. It's definitely magical, whimsical, and a little bit childlike, which I appreciate. This and the Ellis deck actually feel like cousin. I know the art style look very different, but the world that they represent feel like they could be in, you know, at the frontier of the same world, like two countries that are separated by a frontier. And this is a deck, again, that I very rarely see used on YouTube. I don't really see a lot of like fellow tarot tubers talk about this one, and yet I find it fascinating because every time I use this, I notice a different detail, and it's not an RWS clone at all. It definitely does its own thing, even though if you're familiar with the RWS, you'll have no problem reading with it. I love all the little details that you can see, like the Six of Swords, for example. You can see he's carrying an umbrella. We have the weather vane, we have the moon, we have the ducks, and we have a boat. Depending on the context, on the question, when you're going to pull this card, you're going to pick up on certain things, and it's going to make your reading really interesting. The Three of Wands, this little girl with these like dandelions, it's almost like make a wish, right? So where are those seeds going? What are you trying to manifest? What wish are you making? It's one that I like to go to for reading for others particularly. I really appreciate it. I've used it in pick a card readings in the past, but not in a while, so I need to bring it back out. The only thing I don't love are the backs. I find the backs really sad, right? Compared to the color of the front, the backs look really sad. So that's the one thing I don't love. I wish the backs were more colorful and bright, but maybe they wanted to tone it down because the fronts are so busy. I don't know. It's just a detail, so I can live without it. This is a great one if you enjoy storytelling in your decks, if you appreciate something a little bit, again, whimsical, a little bit fairy tale inspired, if you like being taken in this almost like magical forest. There's something very childlike about it due to the nature of this almost like puppet, you know, almost like shadow puppet element art quality to the art style. The few times I've showed it on my channel, a lot of you seem to enjoy it, so it's time to bring it back out and share it with the world. Let's talk about a mass market deck that, again, I feel like I've not talked about enough. It's time to bring it back out. It's the After Tarot by Los Scarabeo. This is really good, you guys. I was doing a reading for myself the other day with this deck, and I was reminded how much I enjoy this one. This is one I've seen used more, specifically in pick a card channels. First, because of the backings. I think the backings are so pretty that a lot of people seem to be attracted to this deck. But for me, what makes this deck stand out is truly the concept behind it, which, as the name suggests, the After Tarot is meant to be what you would imagine could happen after the scene depicted in the traditional RWS. So imagine the traditional RWS depiction of each card. This imagines what could happen after. So for example, for the Three of Pentacles, after they have worked on it, this is the finished product. Right now, we don't see the person working on the Three Pentacles anymore. This is the finished product, and this is what the statue looks like. For example, for the Two of Swords, instead of just the single lady with the two swords, she's now being a witness to a duel. So this is a interpretation, obviously an invention of what would happen after Pamela Coleman Smith's scenes. In the Seven of Swords, for example, after he steals the sword, he is about to get caught. I think this is fabulous, so interesting, and really imaginative, because every time I use this deck, given me, again, really interesting readings that push me outside my comfort zone. I look at this Four of Pentacles. This person has waited so long with their pentacles that death has come for them. It's like, hey, sorry, you've been sitting here too long and now it's your time to go. How great is that? What a cool interpretation of the Four of Pentacles. So this is one that obviously you can use in readings, thinking about what's happening next. And if you have an RWS, you can have one for the present and use this one for the future, for example. And you can use this in particular spread that focus on what's next, what's coming next for me, the next blessings, the next obstacle, the next lesson, anything that's looking at the future and what's going to happen after. This is so great for. This is also a really good one if you feel like you've really learned the RWS and now you're at a stage where you're like, you know what, I want something a little bit outside of my comfort zone, but I still want the RWS kind of like crutch. I need something that's going to push me a little bit outside my comfort zone. This is fantastic because it's going to give you tiny little details. So for example, here we have a scarab. They've dropped the coin and they're holding a scarab, so it's not a huge change, but it's enough to give something else to your reading, right? For example, the Two of Cups, instead of them looking at each other, now they're hugging. Not a huge change, but still a change enough that I think if you are in your process of learning RWS, could be great as a learning tool and for all of my fellow readers out there who want something, again, that will expand them outside their comfort zone, something a little bit different, something to give other layers to your reading. This is so fun. Some of the cards, the changes are very little, like for example on the Four of Wands, instead of them celebrating and dancing, now they're stepping away, they're moving away. It's not huge. It's like, we see now what do you call that, a parade or something. So it's still linked to celebration. It's not a huge departure from traditional imagery. Some of them are definitely a little bit more bold, like with the Eight of Wands, we see an archer. But again, it's still linked to swiftness, movement. So I think they've done a great job, whoever designed this and whoever imagined what could come next. Actually, who did that? Julia F. Massaglia. Well done. Here we see the heart healing after the swords have fallen. So I love that. I love that deck for specifically every time I do readings around what's coming next for me, what, like I was saying, next blessing, next obstacle, and especially if you have an RWS next to it to compare the two, it makes for super interesting reading. I think that there's a before tarot also in the similar line of like, instead of looking what's after the RWS, it looks at what would happen before. It doesn't seem as appealing to me because I'm more interested to focus on what's coming next instead of what has happened. But I'm sure you could do some interesting readings with that as well. Potentially one of my favorite Los Scarabeo decks ever, because I think they've done something really cool here. I think they've really done something unique and something that really can push you outside your comfort zone and still help you to rely on your like background knowledge of tarot. Definitely more popular than the other ones I've shared, but still deserved its time in the spotlight today. Love this Nine of Swords. Finally, we see what the person was afraid of, and yeah, I'd be scared too if that was hanging out over my bed, to be honest. The last deck I wanted to talk about today is an indie deck that, again, I feel like I've talked about it when I got it in my haul at the time. I probably mentioned it in a monthly favorite, and then it kind of fell into the background. I continued using it in my own personal practice, but I kind of failed to share it more on my channel, and yet this is a really great deck. It's a Dark Reflections Tarot. This was a Kickstarter I backed, I think 2 years ago or last year. I can't remember. Kickstarters, they all blend together. But you can purchase this now on the creator's website. This is by Lamucci Design, who has done a few tarot decks now. And this is a deck that is meant to be specifically for shadow work. It comes with a little guidebook, which is really great and really useful, as this is actually a deck that is meant to be used for shadow work, as the creator depicted every single card as if that card was reversed. So this is almost like a reversal only card. Every single card reflecting the shadow, the reverse, the blocked aspect of that card. So it's a very dark deck, not just in the aesthetic, but in the interpretation. Here are the backs. I don't know if you can see because of the lighting today, but you can see there's like spot gloss. That it's not quite spider web, it's more like shadowed glass, I think. And the sides are, they've got this like almost dark blue edging. Definitely a darker, more obscure deck that will not be everyone's cup of tea. This is not the kind of deck you want to go to when you want something cute and joyful and hopeful, because this is a reversal only kind of deck. I have another deck like that I love more actually, which is the Corrupted Tarot. You guys know it was in my top decks of 2024 and I use that deck constantly, and it's probably why I kind of failed to mention this particular deck more on my channel, because I was so obsessed with the Corrupted Tarot as a reversal only kind of deck that I kind of put this one on the side and failed to come back to give you guys my full thought after I shared it in a haul. And yet, this is also a really cool interpretation. It's definitely less gory than the Corrupted Tarot. The Corrupted Tarot has some quite scary images. This one is less, I think, so in terms of the aesthetic, right? There's not that much blood and things like that, so maybe that might be more of your guys' alley if you found the Corrupted Tarot a little bit too gory, but this is still definitely in that shadow side, as every single card represents the almost like reversed, obscure, blocked version of that tarot card. I find this deck quite haunted, and this is my version of the Spolia Tarot. Like the Spolia Tarot also gives me that shadow work kind of deck, but I find it way too creepy, as people with bags on their heads make me want to gasp. I feel like I need to reach for my inhaler. I'm an asthmatic bitch, okay? I can't cope when I see people with bags over their heads. Gives me anxiety, gives me tachycardia. I can't cope. So this is almost like my version of the Spolia, but in a way where I can actually handle it. I can actually handle looking at those cards, specifically when I want to look at things that are a little bit hard to look at, right? When I want to do readings around what's blocking me, what I am not seeing, in what way am I like fooling myself, very like devil-like, the kind of readings where we look at our shit, that's not necessarily pleasing and happy, but we need to do those readings from time to time. This is a great one for that. Look at this sun card. It's actually the sun in eclipse, and this horse, it looks like it's about to go off. It's really interesting. I need to find the Empress, because that Empress is probably my favorite card of the deck. Look, we have the Ace of Cups, but the cup is down. The Fool is really interesting. Their bag is full of skulls. Almost looks like a necromancer. He looks way less foolish and jester-like than your regular fool, and he looks a lot more like he's seen some shit. Like his last walk through the world journey has been leaving him with some scars and some trauma, right? So super interesting interpretation of the Fool. King of Pentacles look like he's been sitting on his throne for so long. He's turned into The Walking Dead. Talk about keeping your witches for so long that you are literally stuck out of movement. The Strength card is probably one of the most poignant card of the deck. We see this person has been attacked by the lion. So they've lost control. They've lost any kind of touch they had on the lion. The lion and the person have no compassion, have no kindness. There is no empathy between the two of them. What a super interesting interpretation of the Strength card. I think it's so poignant and powerful. The Emperor is sitting on a throne of bones and skulls. At what cost have you built empire? At what cost have you elevated yourself? Obviously, at the cost of others. Your empire is built on, the suffering of other people. Hello, colonization. Not all the cards are depressing and dark, though. Like the Queen of Wands, for example, is quite beautiful, and, there's nothing here that looks like threatening or anything. I mean, the sunflower is down, but other than that, she still looks badass. So not every single card is dark and obscure and depressing, but I think the interpretation are really cool. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the suits are color-coded, so all the wands are red. We have color coding in the suit, which makes it really interesting, and the swords are yellow. We have yellow cards for the sword. And look, for the more negative card in tarot, because this is a reversal, for the Eight of Swords, instead of being stuck, she's actually liberating herself. So in that case, the Eight of Swords is a hopeful card. So I think that's super interesting. It really helps to look at tarot through another lens, a completely other lens. Forces you to look outside your comfort zone and to change the way you look at the cards. And I love that. That's kind of like the theme of today's video, I guess. All of the decks I've presented to you today are decks that bring something unique to the reading because they force you outside the norm, outside the stereotypical like way that we look at tarot. And I appreciate that in all of my readings. And that's my favorite card of the deck. We have the Empress and she's muzzled. Ooh, there's something about this card that is like a visceral reaction. I don't know. It makes me think of The Handmaid's Tale or something. It is making me think of like the way that we might muzzle feminine voices around the world, and just every time I pull this card, it's like a gut punch. If you're willing to do that kind of work and you want something a little bit punchy, this can be great. In the guidebook you can see we have challenges when repressed, growth opportunities when accepted, and question to ask, so you can even do some journaling with that. Really interesting guidebook, well written. So that was the last deck on my list for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. All unique decks, all deserving of a little bit of a time in the spotlight, as I hadn't talked about them in way too long. And of course, thank you so much for being here. Until my next video, I'm sending you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!